Ember Witch. Book 1. The Lich. Volume 1. Black Tragedy. Chapter 4. Black Tragedy. September 19, 459 BME to October 31, 461 BME. Fragment 36. Healing. Hana opened her eyes. She was staring at the cloth ceiling of a tent, the breeze blowing it in awkward and random patterns. She breathed in with a terrible wheeze. Her chest, heart and her body felt heavy. She turned her head to see an empty tent. She tried to push out her color but felt nothing. After another few labored breaths, she struggled to sit up. She winced in pain, then attempted to stand up. As soon as she got to her feet, she lost balance and fell face first to the ground. She landed with a thud and screamed out in pain, and moments later a young female Lyran ran into the room and helped her to the bed once more.
You must be careful, your internal injuries have yet to fully heal,
she said in a soft tone, and Hana looked over to her.
What happened to me? Where am I?
Hana asked, and the young girl looked her over.
You are safe. You had a punctured lung and several broken bones, but you have been treated by our best healers. You need to rest. I will inform Fevra that you are awake,
she said, then quickly left the tent. Fevra opened the door, and Hana looked over to him with a frown.
What the fuck happened?
She asked, and Fevra sat down on a chair in the corner.
During our encounter with the spider, you were flung into a tree and broke your ribs. Your lung was punctured and you broke at least 6 other bones. You have been in and out of consciousness the past few months,
Fevra said, and Hana again struggled to sit up.
And what about the Lyran? Did you tell them?
She asked after a wheeze.
I did, however you had informed them before I could. It seems that the High Leader took your words very seriously. What I don't know is exactly what you told them,
Fevra said, and Hana looked down to her arm. The venom had scorched a deep burn into her flesh. Her fur had melted away and looked like it would never grow back where the scars had begun healing.
I don't remember what I said. If they haven't killed either of us, it couldn't have been about the blade,
Hana said, and Fevra put his finger to his mouth.
My people have much better hearing than the Firan. Keep our intentions to yourself, especially since Jolan is my watchdog,
he whispered, and Hana turned her head in confusion.
Jolan? Who in the void is that?
She asked, and Fevra sighed.
Jolan is the man who survived the encounter with the blade. He was the one who convinced my pack's High Leader to exile me in the first place. He has been put in charge of keeping an eye on me during our time in the Evergreen, meaning we will have company when we reach the Cherry Blossom,
Fevra said, and Hana shook her head.
Fuck,
she said, and Fevra stood up.
Get your rest. I have no idea how long it will take for you to fully heal, so we might be stuck here for a while,
Fevra said, then headed for the door.
Fevra, wait,
Hana said, and Fevra turned his head. After a few moments, Hana sighed.
Nothing.
Fevra shrugged, then exited the tent. Hana turned away from the door and looked back to her arm. She put her head down, then held a hand to her burned arm. She wheezed, then began to cry. Vera had made it halfway through the Fevra Plateau's region before she collapsed into a heap from exhaustion. Her wound still hurt her despite it being months since she escaped from the prison. Her legs ached, her burn blistered and scabbed over, and her body still recovering from the sexual torture she had endured. She wanted to use her color to help heal the damage done, but she was simply too exhausted to expend the energy. She stared up at the sky, the sun threatening to burn her eye out of her head. She extended her arm out to block the light. She lay there for a while, just hoping that some beast would come and finish her off. She extended her energy, searching for anything. Feeling small creatures digging burrows into the ground, birds soaring through the sky, and surprisingly 2 wren about 100 yards away from her. She stood up and scanned the barren plains, looking for the 2 people she felt. The 2 beings were headed in her direction. She began walking towards them, keeping her mind off the pain and exhaustion she felt. After a few moments she reached the 2 and fell to the ground once again.
Please help.
She choked out before she slipped into unconsciousness in the snow. A small town surrounded her. She looked around trying to gather any information she could, but she was unable to move. Before she knew what was happening, several images flashed before her. A woman with black hair, a black blade dripping with oddly shaped energy, a room covered in blood and a throne of light. The images lasted only moments, but burned into her mind. After the images faded, a voice rang out in her ears.
Seek the humans who aid the half-breed. Only you can understand my words, my child. The answers to questions you do not know will be found in the House of Black.
She woke up in a daze, the light streaming in through a small window shined on her face, making her have to look away. She sat up, slowly taking in the room. A small table, 2 shelves full of books, and a few paintings hung from the walls. She was about to stand up, but was interrupted by a male fireman who entered the room.
Hey, careful there, you were gravely wounded and I'm sure you don't want to reopen any of the stitches.
The male fireman said in their native tongue. Vera examined the man before she spoke.
How long have I been asleep?
She asked in fires.
About 3 days. You must have used quite a lot of color to make you sleep for that long. I suggest you rest, regain your strength. I will bring you food and water, please stay still.
The male fireman said, seeing that Vera was beginning to wince. She laid back down and pondered the dream she had just woken from. Aries sat at the kitchen table, focusing her mind on a bowl sitting just before her. Even though she couldn't make a connection with her color, she was intent on practicing the lessons Syria had taught her only a few months ago. She stared at the bowl, examining the white glow around it. She inhaled and thought about a white empty space, keeping her mind focused. She had taken to meditating and practicing her breathing techniques ever since they had gotten home. Before leaving Meridia, Syria had given her dozens upon dozens of pages worth of research material. The tightly written script allowed for her to come to understand nearly every aspect of color and how she could connect with it. From simple conjuration spells to even notes and theories regarding her mother's gemstone necklace. Everything she could ever need had been painstakingly detailed in writing, and she was determined to make use of it all. She had no idea how long her magic would be locked away, but when it came back she would be able to use it almost as masterfully as Syria could. Eve was sitting on her bed, the Book of the Gods mocking her from the end table. The black-covered book held the history and teachings of the Church of Creation, and the sight of it made her sick. She lifted the book and turned the pages as if to torture herself. Finding the page that she had always found hope in, she read over the passage, then once finished, tore the page out and ripped it to pieces. She stood up from the bed, grabbed a candle from the end table, and placed the book inside of a small metal bin. She touched the flame to the scraps of paper, then placed them in the bin as well. She watched with dead eyes as it lit ablaze. The last of her faith burning away as she pulled the gemstone from her neck. The green jewel glinted in the firelight, and Eve placed it inside of her dresser. She sat back down and watched as the last fragments of the book disintegrated into ash. Lilith sat in the living room holding a letter in her hands. Tears falling from her cheeks, soaking into the paper. She hadn't wanted to believe it, but the words stared back at her as if a mocking statement of failure. Syria had been the one thing in her life that made sense to her. The one person she felt any real connection with, and this letter had destroyed all of it. Her mother had warned her, and now she was witnessing it firsthand. She wiped her eyes and read on, hoping that the words weren't true, but the further she got down the page, the more it hurt. A few short days of happiness, now only memories.
In the last 2 months I've had to pull dozens of men from construction into military training because of that bitch mage.
King Darian said with so much anger Syria could feel it.
In all due respect, Your Majesty, it's entirely your fault for not taking the precautions to hold her in your prison. I do not see why I am here listening to a spoiled child scream about an entirely avoidable situation.
Syria replied, keeping her composure in the throne room.
I am the king of this land and you will treat me with the respect I deserve.
The king yelled, slamming his fist on the arm of his throne.
You are a king, not my king, and I expect you to get this through your thick inbred skull. I will not, and I repeat will not, have another conversation with you again. I serve the church on behalf of the Elven Kingdom and nothing more,"
she replied, clenching her fists. The king was about to scream again, but Syria held up a hand.
"I have the power to not only kill you but everyone in this castle. The Fyren was injured, blinded and nearly crippled, and she escaped because of your incompetence. I am at full health with enough combat training to best any threat you pose. The next time you barge into the chapel I will end your life, gods be damned,"
Syria threatened. Obviously a bluff, as she was cut off from magic, but Darian had no idea of this. She turned around and walked out of the throne room, leaving the king to his rage. Syria made it back to the chapel and kneeled at the statues, praying for forgiveness at the words she had said to the king. Luke approached and laid a hand on her shoulder. After the escape of the Fyren assassin, she thought it would be safer to bring him and Gerald back to the chapel so she could keep a closer watch on them. Gerald, however, insisted that he get back to his own life, so she reluctantly allowed him to leave.
"I've always loved these statues. They make me feel like the gods are watching over me, keeping me safe,"
Syria said, welcoming Luke's warm touch. The chapel had become quiet the past few days, due to Brother Jaren having been called to Sin's garden. He had left shortly after the Black family, and Syria knew exactly why. It would only be a matter of time before she herself would be called on, and she wasn't sure she had the strength to face it. After 2 months in the Moon Hunters camp, Fevra had gotten back into his old self. Not entirely, but he had begun to become more comfortable in the presence of his people. He was still annoyed that Jolin was on his tail day and night, but he understood why he was in the position he was in. Jolin had been grilling him, yelling at him, pushing him in every way possible, in hopes that he would snap. Give him any excuse to kill him, but Fevra had already been trained to ignore and even use the abuse to his advantage by Vera. His time with her had given him the patience to know exactly how to react and behave in situations like this. He was currently skinning a rabbit the hunters had brought back with 3 young males. He was mindlessly going through the motions as his years of preparing meals had gone from exciting and disgusting in his youth to boring and mundane. The kids around him had been talking amongst themselves, trying to avoid any eye contact with him. He knew that his presence was unwanted within the pack, especially because of his dark pressure that never disappeared. The healers had thoroughly investigated his pressure his first week out of the hole, and they were just as baffled about it as Hana, Vera, Cress, Neela, and even Kaisha were.
"Pack Slayer, come here,"
Jolin called out from behind Fevra. He stood up, leaving the half-skinned rabbit on the ground along with his knife, and walked over to Jolin, who was standing next to the High Council's tent.
"You and I are going out for a hunt. Get your bag, we will be out for a few days,"
Jolin said, and Fevra reflexively bowed.
"Cut that shit out already,"
Jolin said, then pushed past him. Fevra stood up, then walked to his tent and began packing his things. He walked past a chair and stopped. Sitting on the chair was his black and gray cinders attire. The broken blade vibrant against the black and gray. He looked down to the plain brown shirt and pants he had been wearing the past few months. Over his time here, both Jolin and the council had expressed that the cinders attire wasn't appropriate for him to wear in their camp. He had gone with their wishes to not defy their ruling due to him still being a prisoner of sorts. The most important part of his relationship with the Lyran at this point was to prove that he was not a threat to them. He needed to live with them and obey their laws. After a moment, he removed the plain clothing he was wearing and slipped on his custom-fitting cinders attire. He strapped the many utility belts to his chest, hip and legs, then he pulled the cloak over his head. He pulled the hood up, then grabbed the sword he had been given a few weeks ago and slid it into the ring on his right hip. He stepped out of the tent, bag in hand, and Jolin stared daggers at him. Fevra pushed it off, then followed Jolin into the forest. Vera was finally able to walk again. She attempted to get out of the bed days ago, but her legs were so weak she collapsed. Her eye was almost finished healing, and all of her broken bones had reset. Her reproductive organs were never going to work again, but luckily nothing vital was injured, so she would survive. Devastated but alive. She kept having odd dreams, each showing her a few more images of a small town on the edge of the woods and a human woman with black hair. The images lasted only seconds, so she couldn't make any connections to where this town might be, but she knew that in time she'd figure out what was happening. She made her way into the kitchen. Shurva, the female Firen that had taken care of her the past week, was sitting at the table eating a bowl of rice. Vera sat next to her, squinting as a bit of pain shot through her body.
I see you are still feeling pain, dear. Is there anything I can do to help?
Shurva asked.
Oh no, I'll be fine.
Vera replied.
I know it's not fine. What happened to you was pure evil. Please let me know if there is anything I can do.
Shurva shot back with sorrow.
Actually, there is something you might be able to help me with. I'm not exactly the best at geography. I need to find a place I've never been to and have no idea where it is. Do you have a map I could look over?
Vera asked, placing her hand on the table softly.
Oh, of course, but it's not the best idea to be leaving, dear. Your wounds have barely healed. Just because you are mageborn doesn't make you invincible.
Shurva replied, getting up from the table and headed towards a small nook in the kitchen. She grabbed a roll of paper and placed it on the table.
I'm not leaving yet, just need a direction is all. You and your husband have been very kind to take me in while I heal,
Vera said as she unrolled the map.
Oh, it's not an issue, Vera. I'm just glad you are still alive.
Shurva said as Vera looked over the map, trying to find every forest in all of Valsala. There was the forest in the heartland that surrounded the ringed mountains. The Gorewood Forest, where the city of Necrogrove disappeared in a night, to the west of Myopia, and the Evergreen Forest to the north of the Queen's Crown mountain range and Meridia. She hoped that Fevra was doing okay. It had been so long since she had kissed him on the day they separated. Along with dozens of small wooded areas scattered across the rest of the continent, Vera had no idea where to start. She focused her mind trying to remember as much as she could about the dreams she'd been having. If it wasn't for her training in magic, she would have just thought these dreams as just dreams, but it was too real, too connected to her life, to be dreams. She was finally understanding what Hana had warned her about just before they took out the necromancers and destroyed the blood blade at Shinran Keep. These dreams were so vivid, almost as if she was in a different place. After everything that she has been through since then, she wasn't sure what she believed anymore. She used to not believe in gods. She used to find the idea of all-powerful beings controlling everything ridiculous. Now, however, she was beginning to rethink her views on the world.
Brother Jaren, it is so great to meet you. I am Lyasan, the Grand Librarian of Sin's Garden. I am aware of why you are here so far from your home on the mainland.
Lysan said, extending his hand out. Jaren extended his hand, grasping Lysan's hand in a firm shake.
The situation is out of control. Our healer is reckless and dangerous. She gets high every day. I am afraid that she simply isn't doing this for the gods,
Jaren said, just coming out with it.
I understand that our cultures are different and I apologize for her behavior. Here in Sin we live alongside nature. We do not see as you see. Her drug use is an acceptable way for her to connect with Sin. Her color, her magic comes from her connection to the planet and its life,
Lysan said, sitting down in his chair. The red-skinned man, with white tattoos running down his face, starting from the eyes down to his cheeks, ending at points, radiated power in just his posture. Jaren sat down and began pulling papers from his bag.
It's not just that, Grand Librarian. I have evidence of dark magic along with the torture of a wounded Firen within the walls of the chapel.
Dark magic?
Lysan asked, his interest growing.
Yes, some notes on a gemstone, a ritual circle diagram, and something having to do with something called a lunar vex.
The mention of that made Lysan gasp. He turned in his chair and frowned to himself.
Leave the notes here, I'll find a replacement for this witch,
Lysan said, now only wanting to gather his thoughts. The implications of something like this being possible were blasphemous to even think of, and he had a mage researching such things in the sacred walls. This situation was far worse than Jaren thought.
If what you say is true, we have to question this mage. Make sure she returns to Sin. I will take this case myself. Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Hana was laying on her back as the young girl she had come to know as Maria ran her hands over her exposed chest. Her aqua color flowing around her vibrantly. Hana breathed in with only a small wheeze and Maria frowned.
Your recovery has been coming along nicely, however I am afraid that you will have breathing complications for the remainder of your life. The damage done to your lung was far worse for any of the healers to completely fix. It has healed to the point where it will no longer cause internal bleeding, however it is severely scarred. In the best case scenario you will live another 10 to 20 years at max before your lung fails entirely. You will need to attend regular healing sessions in order to keep the lung from failing early. I am so sorry,
Maria said, and Hana sat up.
So what you are telling me is that I have a death sentence. 10 to 20 years is generous, isn't it? Realistically it will be around 5 years, am I right?
Hana said, and Maria looked to the floor.
I am uncertain on exactly how long you will live. Our healing abilities are far less advanced than that of the cherry blossom. I have done all I can to keep it from becoming infected without cutting you open. In a circumstance like that you would die. The Lyran anatomy is far different from your own, so even if we had a replacement lung we would be unable to surgically swap them. Remember that even in the simplest of procedures, our knowledge and limited understanding on the functions of the body, we would never be able to reattach a body part. It has been attempted before, ending in the deaths of the patients. I wish there was more I could do, I truly do,
Maria said, and Hana reached her hand up, placing it on her right breast. She inhaled and wheezed, then looked over to Maria.
Thank you for being honest with me,
she said, and Maria grasped her hand.
If you need anything else, please don't hesitate to call me. I understand that you are in a strange place surrounded by unfamiliar people. I hope that you can return home before you are taken by the damaged lung,
Maria said, then stood up. She exited the tent, leaving Hana alone with her thoughts once more.